Welcome back to EPL Insights for Gameweek 26th. Jake Osgathorpe away this week. I am still Gareth Wheeler, but we're joined by the happiest man. It's Andrew from Anfield. Is that okay? Andrew Beasley does such great content with Liverpool. You hear him on the UCL betting blueprint as well right here on Pinnacle, and filling the big boots of Jake Osgathorpe today. Jake's on a little bit of a roll as of late, Andrew. He's caught fire here in 2024, kind of like my beloved side, Manchester United, trending in the right direction. How are you, Andrew? Thanks for joining us this week.
I'm good, thanks. It's good to be here. Filling in for the main man, obviously, is never an easy task, but good to hear he's on a roll. I had a good weekend last weekend as well with my selections. I write elsewhere, got 4 out of 5 correct, which was nice. I think it was second best week of the season, so hopefully that's the start of a good run in.
Brilliant. This week, as always, a feature 5, a little bit different this week with the Carabao Cup Final being played. We'll go rapid fire for the rest. We'll provide our best bets and everything in between. So Andrew is catching fire at the right time as well. That smile extra large this week because his beloved Liverpool side. Check out Andrew's work on Liverpool. It's excellent if you're a fan of that club. But Liverpool 2 wins in 2 games this week. Manchester City, just a win and a draw, and that gap just opening up just a little bit for a Liverpool side that's dealing with a whole lot of injuries at present time. Really what we're looking at in terms of the futures play on Pinnacle is a 3-horse race for the Premier League title this season. Liverpool up by 5 points. The other 2 trailing or chasing sides in City and Arsenal both have a game in hand. If you're looking at the markets on Pinnacle, it's Man City who are still the favorites to go on and win the Premier League according to the market on Pinnacle at even money. Liverpool plays at plus 160. Arsenal still very much in the mix. We'll get Andrew's take on it, but they're available to play at plus 350. What do you make of the title race, the 3-horse race to the finish line here? We're not quite rounding the final turn yet, but things are becoming a little bit more clear. What's your feel, and is there a play that you would make in terms of the future market as well?
I'm not sure there's a play I would make. It is very, very tight at the moment and very difficult to call. I think Liverpool are in fantastic form, as you rightly say, but they've got a lot of men out, and I'm not sure how often they can keep winning with so many key players missing. I mean, I think if you were to sort of name Liverpool's 3 or 4 key players, you'd probably have Alisson Becker, you'd definitely have Mohamed Salah, you'd probably have Trent Alexander-Arnold. Dominic Szoboszlai's probably been the pick of the midfielders so far this season, and they're all out. And there's sort of 5 or 6, 7 other guys who are out as well. So it's sort of similar when, we'll talk about the Carabao Cup Final later, and it's a similar thing. All things being equal, you would pick Liverpool to win, but with so many players out, it is tough. And that's sort of how I'm looking at the title race at the moment. I guess we're sort of approaching the point, not quite make or break for Manchester City, but obviously they've got Bournemouth this weekend, and I forget the exact order of the fixtures, but I think their next 5 are Liverpool, Arsenal, United, Villa and Brighton in some order. So if City get through that period largely unscathed, then their running is fairly favourable apart from a trip to Tottenham, which is a ground they normally struggle at. But you would think if they get through that tricky run of 5, then they'll stand a very good chance. I think Arsenal are rightly sort of third favourites at the moment just because they haven't been there and done it in the past. Obviously, they fell away last week. I didn't see their game against Porto last night, but it looks like they didn't create very much. But they've been flying in the league. I will expect them to win this weekend, as we'll talk about later. But I'm really not sure about a play. I think it's very, very difficult to call, but I think the teams are probably in the right order in the market as I see it.
I do believe, by the way, that yours truly made an FC Porto first leg recommendation on the Champions League betting blueprint. Just saying, Andrew. It was just a few weeks back, like right around the turn of the new year. Man City to win the title was at a decent plus number. And Jake and I were telling our listeners and our viewers to say, if you like City, this is the time. It swung way back in the other direction. I believe a week ago, they're up minus 160, minus 180 range to go on and win it back to even money. Because of those Liverpool injuries, I understand that Liverpool have a little bit more of a straightforward run-in just in terms of the teams that they play, the remainder of their schedule. even money. Is there any value there in your perspective? I guess you kind of answered no, but we are kind of creeping back into that range where you're like, maybe it makes sense to make a City future play.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting even money, then perhaps it does, because I mean they haven't. I think they've got two players out injured at the
Yeah.
moment, and you'd imagine they'll breeze through against Copenhagen. So there's not much to worry about there. It will be interesting to see how Liverpool approach the Europa League as well. How seriously? I mean, they're obviously going to take it seriously, but what sort of teams does Klopp put out there? Does he hold anyone back for the following league game on the Sunday? Liverpool, for instance, Liverpool have an away Europa League game the Thursday before they play Manchester City in a couple of weeks' time. Obviously, the draw for the Europa League is tomorrow, so we'll know if they're playing a team. If there'll be a lot of travelling, if there won't be a lot of travelling, but. Liverpool having an away European game before what many would view as almost a title decider is not ideal from their perspective. I think these prices, as you've said, will sort of fluctuate every time. If City was sort of down at minus 160 or something like that, with every match, if either team drops points, the market's going to shift again. So it's going to be very, very difficult to know when's the best time to make your bet. Am I right in thinking you picked Liverpool at the start of the season?
I did.
Are you still sort of confident in that?
It's in the plus 800, plus 850 range. I'm happy with that play. I wouldn't bet them where they stand right now, but it just all depends on the injuries and the fixture buildup. Another cup final this week. The games are building up, and we'll see what the young players can do. Like Bradley step right in, Kwanzaa, like players that months ago you wouldn't have expected. It's just Jota's a big miss. Szoboszlai, they need him back in the team. He's such an important player for the team. But I like what I see, and you can't knock the results. And at least the Premier League fixture list should play in their favor. Another recurring theme here on this podcast is goals. We love goals. The public play loves to bet on goals, and there's been a lot of winners if you're betting the total and betting on the over specifically. 8 of the 12 games played over the course of the last week went over 2.5 goals. Both teams to score played in 8 of them, and that pales in comparison to what we've seen in recent weeks. Game week 24, 8 of the 10 over 2.5. Both teams to score 7 times. Week 23, 9 out of the 10 went over 2.5 goals. Both teams to score played 8 times. Week 22, 8 of the 10 went over 2.5 goals. Guess what? Both teams to score played 8 times as well. Do you expect this trend to continue? I mean, I don't want to say that teams are allergic to defending, but certainly it's not what we've seen in the past. And the over the total has been the preferable play for the vast majority of this Premier League season. What do you make of that trend, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a noticeable trend as well. If you look at the statistics for last season in the Premier League, 52.6% of games saw over 2.5 goals, and that's now up to 65.2%. So a massive leap.
Wow.
And I think the obvious place to start is, they're playing lots of more additional time at the end of games than they did before. We're seeing more late goals than we used to, and that obviously plays a part. But it's interesting to look at the statistics. I've got the numbers up for FB Ref, and the cumulative expected goals for the division is 764, and there's been 807 goals. So the sort of teams between them are about 43 above XG, which you wouldn't imagine is going to last. Now, I think you'd need a breakdown of when those goals are being scored, like we say, more late goals against tired defences and things like that. But teams collectively are overperforming when that normally tracks pretty well, as you would expect, because obviously it's an average of what you're expecting teams to score. So to be over by that much is quite unusual. So, but I think if they keep playing the injury time and stuff, and you just get these sort of disparities. Obviously, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester City are all going at an incredible pace. So straight away, they're perhaps scoring more goals than we might expect. You've got teams like Newcastle have conceded twice as many as they had at this stage last season. If they're nowhere near as defensively strong and stuff like that, that obviously adds goals into the market. You've then got Sheffield United, who I think have conceded the most goals anyone has at this time of the season. Obviously, they were beaten 8-0 by Newcastle, as the famous example, lost a couple of games 5-0 at home recently, or conceding 5 at home, I should say, recently. So I think you've got 3 very strong teams. You've got some weaker than normal teams, perhaps at the bottom of the table, bit of extra time, all these things sort of coming together. So Whether it's here to stay, we'll have to see. I think the teams that look likely to come up from the Championship for next season are stronger than the ones that are going to go down. That may tighten things up a bit and stuff like that. And you'll have, as we say, Manchester United look like they're improving. Tottenham will probably get better with another year and stuff like that. So maybe things will tighten up again. But it is definitely all a bit chaotic this season.
Good analysis. Long may that trend continue. I do have an underplay on my card for this week that may be a little bit surprising. So we'll get into that in a few moments. I had a really good week last week as well. Wolves over 2 goals against the spread against Spurs as well. Arsenal to win to 0. Villa to win outright last week. There's some good value on the board. Jake and I both on the Brighton Sheffield United over. And Jake, cash big, Liverpool and both teams to score last weekend as well. Ready to get into the feature 5 for game week 26? Well, you have no choice, Andrew, so we're going to do it anyways. If you said no, we'd still go ahead. So I tried to empower you there and snatched it away right back. And let's start off with the fixtures on Saturday, a busy fixture list with the Carabao Cup going Sunday. It's 4th place Aston Villa taking on 16th place Nottingham Forest. Villa on 49 points have leapfrogged back over top of Spurs, 2 points better than Tottenham. After a 2-1 away win at Fulham, Manoli Watkins brace, what a player he is, having a really strong season. Stopped the stretch of 1 win and 3 losses in their last 4 in all competitions. Villa haven't had a clean sheet in 3. They played to over 2.5 goals in their last 5, both teams to score in 4 of 5. Unai Emery, 50 Premier League games in, 30 wins and 98 points. That's 5 more wins and 9 more points than any other Villa manager at that point. Early case being made, best manager in Villa history. Potentially, he is being that good. 3 straight losses at home in all competitions, however, 3-1, 3-1, and 2-1. They're still 9-1 and 2. At home, 31 goals scored, 13 conceded, 6th best expected goals, courtesy of understat, and the 5th best expected goals against. That Kamara injury really stings him out for the season. We'll see how that plays long term. Still waiting for Konza to come back into the team, but Pau Torres did come back in and showed why he is critical to the defensive structure of Villa. For Nottingham Forest, on 24 points and 4 points above the drop, a 2-0 home win over a dreadful West Ham side last weekend and crushed it in the XG battle, 2.67 to just 0.52. Of course, Calvin Phillips was sent off in the second half of that game. It stopped a stretch of 4 without a win in the Premier League, and both teams to score have played for Nuno Espirito Santos side 8 out of their last 10 games. There was their first Premier League clean sheet as well in their last 14 games. They haven't been great away from home, however, 2, 3, and 7 on the season, 13 goals scored, 24 goals conceded. The good news for this bloated Nottingham Forest side is only 2 players out right now. It's been the best it's been all season, Montiel and Wood. So they're healthy heading into this fixture. Should mention that they do play at home against United in Manchester United in the 5th round of the FA Cup come Wednesday. Head-to-head, Forest actually beat Villa 2-0 in the reverse fixture. Do you have a play for this game? You can get Villa to win at -181, Forest at +465. Where are you leaning, Andrew Beasley?
I am leaning towards goals. I think Villa probably will win, but I'm not sure it's worth going near them, obviously, at the price they are, -181. They've sort of lost that air of invincibility, which they had at home. As you said, I think it's 3 straight home defeats. And the expected goals numbers say they should be closer to -140 for this rather than 180. If you look at the XG, it says this is the match this weekend that's most likely to see both teams score and over 2.5 goals, which is priced at +101. So I think I'm going to go for that. Villa are joint 3rd in the league for this outcome. It's happened 15 times, and it's happened in 8 of 12 at home. As you mentioned, both teams have scored in pretty much every game Forest have played under Nuno prior to their 2-0 win over West Ham last week. They are running a little hot on the XG, in the league at least, 15 goals from 11.7 expected. But to say with Villa, a little bit more erratic than they were, I think Forest can probably score. I liked noticing this game finished 5-5 in 2018. Wouldn't it be great if we had a repeat of that, a 5-5 draw? I think that's unlikely, obviously. But both teams to score an over 2.5 at +101 for me.
Yeah, I absolutely consider that both these managers just play very attacking football. Nuno's the bigger surprise for me based upon the way that they played at Wolves. But with this Nottingham Forest team having their full squad to select from, I think that their front four is looking pretty well accomplished. It's looking a much more dangerous team, especially from an attacking perspective. And you said it. I think they can go to Villa and score. And I do think there'll be goals in this game. But I prefer the play Forest on the spread. The Pinnacle's giving you a full goal. So +1 at even money. I just don't know Villa in terms of their current form, their current standing against the Nottingham Forest side that had a little bit of a wobble. They were missing 5 or 6 players at the African Cup of Nations as well. It was an entirely different squad, a different team. But I think that with all their big dogs back in this group, I think they can compete against Aston Villa in this game. And if you're giving me a goal and even money, that's just too good of an offer not to take. So a full unit play, Forest on the spread. Do you think they can keep it close in this game? I know that Villa Park they're one of the final sides that were undefeated at home, and things have gone a little bit sideways over recent weeks. But I just have a feel, Andrew, that Forest can keep it close here.
Yeah, I think you have to respect them after their win at Newcastle. I think that took everybody by surprise. Doubt many people saw that coming. But once they showed they were capable of that, then you have to think they've got a chance in most away games of at least getting on the board and as you say, keeping it close. So I'm not against that. I think Villa probably will win, but that looks a good price for that handicap. Yeah.
So similar views, but two different plays for the first fixture of the weekend in our feature 5. Let's move things forward to Bournemouth and Manchester City. Bournemouth is on 13th place, I should say, on 28 points. They have never beat Manchester City in Premier League play. It's going to be a difficult task this weekend as well. Bournemouth played to a back-and-forth 2-2 draw at St. James's Park. Solanke scored his 14th goal this season, and in fairness, could have had more in the game as well. It's Bournemouth's third draw in their last 4 games, no wins in 4 overall, and no wins in 6 in the Premier League. No clean sheets in 4. They played to over 2.5 in 8 of 10. Both teams of scorers played in 4 of their last 5 in all competitions. They are 3-4-4 at home for 13 points, but their expected point total on understat is over 16, so they're underachieving to a certain degree. 12 goals at home, that's the issue. It's the joint fewest with Sheffield United. Yuck. Billings is still suspended after being sent off against Nottingham Forest. As for Man City, they're in second place, still 4 points back of Liverpool with a game in hand. They're coming off a 1-0 home win over 1-0 win over Brentford midweek. Erling Haaland scored, and that came after the disappointing 1-1 draw with Chelsea on the weekend. The draw of that game, by the way, last weekend, Chelsea and Man City closed at plus 560 on Pinnacle. Erling Haaland has now scored against all 21 Premier League teams he's played against. And big XGs in both games for Man City, Andrew, 2.78 and 2.54, but just 2 goals to speak of in picking up 4 points against Chelsea and Brentford. City remained unbeaten in their last 35 in all competitions. 25 points in 12 away games is the most away points per game in the Premier League. Check that. City were unbeaten their last 16 in all competitions. Wrong number there. 25 points in 12 away games is the most away points in the Premier League, the second most away goals, and the best away expected XG. It's funny, Man City, their expected goals is far better away from home than it is playing at the Etihad. I'm sure we'll get Andrew's thoughts on that. Just the 2 injuries, Grealish and Vardiol, only absentees. Neither look particularly long-term. This will be the 5th game in the last 15 days for Man City, and they do play Tuesday again against Luton Town in the FA Cup. Head-to-head, City just dominates Bournemouth whenever they play. 6-1 last time out, then it was 4-1 City, the Vitality before that, 4-0 the time before that, 14 straight wins, City over Bournemouth, and they played to over 2.5 in their last 6, and both teams to score in 5 of 6. Do you see that City dominance in this matchup continuing this weekend? I'm not sure if there's another way of looking at it, Andrew.
No, exactly. As you mentioned, they're top of the league for expected goals away from home, and it isn't even close. They're miles ahead of anybody on that. And obviously, Bournemouth tends to play a sort of fairly open game, which will probably suit Manchester City. I mean, Bournemouth having such a strange season. I think it was 9 without a win to start the season, and then a 9-game run where they were just about the best team in the division. And now, as I think you said, 6 without a win. They're sort of very up and down, peaks and troughs. So I think the play for me is a Manchester City win and over 2.5 goals, which is minus 108. Mainly because 9 of Bournemouth's 10 defeats this season have been with over 2.5 goals. Now, I guess this could be a repeat of when Tottenham won 2-0 at Bournemouth, the sort of exception to that rule. You could see a game where City take the lead and just sort of control it and see the game out. But, Bournemouth do carry a bigger threat than they did early in the season. They have been scoring quite a few goals. Obviously, Solanke, one of the top scorers in the division. So it wouldn't surprise me if Bournemouth scored. But I think, City and over 2.5 at minus 108 would be my selection for this one.
I'm trying to look back to see if Man City have picked up back-to-back clean sheets in the Premier League this season. It was the first and second game of the year, Burnley and Newcastle. That's it. They go on these stretches where they'll pick up a clean sheet, they concede a goal, and a lot of cheap goals that completely go against the number. I keep on hammering this. And unfortunately, I've been on the wrong side of betting both teams to score when Man City's played, like against Everton a few weeks ago. That's a prime example. But I do think that that's the way to go. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it's just momentary lapses. They feel like they're too in control of games. Then they concede against the grain, but they do concede goals. Very similar play to you, but I'm going to go with a little bit more juice on both teams to score and over 2.5 at minus 101. That's the only difference. So not a City victory, but just over the 2.5 total for all the reasons that you speak of. I think that Bournemouth has been a sweetheart team this season. There's been some value playing them, particularly against the handicap. I can't do it based on the way that this matchup has played out, Andrew. Even despite the fixtures building up for Man City, they've just been thoroughly dominant. And that's what happens sometimes in the Premier League. Like, United beats Villa. Like, I'm sure that Liverpool has their team every time out. They seemingly come away with the result. It's City Bournemouth, and they're just too good against Bournemouth. So that's my play, a full unit bet here. Anything else on this game?
No, I mean, only to add, I did read on StatZone, apparently Bournemouth have never beaten Man City in the league in 17 attempts, and it's the longest run of any team against any other in like English football history. So I guess it's got to end eventually, but I don't think it's going to be this weekend.
Well, as long as both teams to score play and it's over 2.5, I'm a happy man. You might not be, Andrew, with the City lean here, but there's always hope. We'll see. Any given Saturday, I guess. Let's move things forward. Also on Saturday from Old Trafford, it's Manchester United and Fulham. A United victory plays on Pinnacle at minus 174. Fulham to win at plus 444. United are still in sixth place. They close the gap with Spurs to just 3, and a 6-point gap between Brighton, the nearest team behind them. That's coming off a 2-1 away win at Luton Town. That's 6 straight games with a goal for Rasmus Højlund, 7 goals in 6 games overall. He had a brace within 7 minutes of that game. It looked like United would be in cruise control, but in typical Manchester United fashion, they make it much more difficult or complicated than it should be. United still haven't lost in 2024, by the way. Now, Luton Town controlled large stretches of that game on the weekend, but United had an XG, courtesy of Understat, of 3.59. They won that battle by a considerable margin. They just couldn't score when they were attacking on the counter. Manchester United's XG is starting to climb up, and so are the goals. They played to over 2.5 in their last 6. 5 wins in a row in all competitions, no losses in 7 overall. Both teams score in 5 of 6, and they've been the first to score and the first half winner in their last 7 games overall. Now, this is only their 3rd home match of 2024. The last 3 home games, they scored 3 goals against Aston Villa and West Ham, and twice against Spurs. Although on the season, 18 goals scored and 18 conceded, 22 points, but an expected point total of just 16.9. The complicated thing for selection-wise, Luke Shaw is now out long-term with no straightforward left-back replacement. Wan-Bissaka, Malacia, Martinez, and Mason Mount all remain out. Fulham, they're in 12th place on 29 points, coming off a 2-1 home loss to Aston Villa. The good news is they signed Broja to bring him in, but it's Rodrigo Muniz who's now just finding the back of the net, scored again. He has goals in 3 straight games and 4 overall in terms of that span of time. No clean sheet in their last 3 games for Aston Villa. Just 1 away win on the season. They've been dreadful away from Craven Cottage, 1-4-7, and the second fewest away points earned. And that win away from home came the first week of the season in a 1-0 victory over Everton. They also have the second fewest away goals with 11, the third worst expected goals at 10.68 in 12, the third worst expected goals against at 26.15 in 12. They're just bad away from home. And on top of it all, Polina is suspended for this game. He's picked up 10 cautions. So he's suspended for the next 2 games. Head to head, United won at Craven Cottage. It was a late goal to win it. 1-0. Bruno Fernandes got it. That was actually Bruno Fernandes' last goal in the Premier League. 4 Manchester United wins and no losses in 18 in the head-to-head against Fulham. Fulham no clean sheets in 18 playing Manchester United. I think the last time they won at Old Trafford, Fulham, was 2003, and they played to over 2.5 in 8 of 10. So does that, much like City dominates Bournemouth, United similarly have Fulham's number, especially at Old Trafford? Does that continue this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I sort of very rarely back Manchester United, and that's not just sort of like a fan rivalry thing. It's just you're never quite sure what you're going to get.
True.
But as you rightly said, Fulham have been pretty bad on the road and haven't won since the first game of the season. I think as well, what you have to remember with United, for all their sort of ups and downs over the years, I mean, under Ten Hag, they've generally been pretty good against the sort of lower half teams. Obviously, there are the exceptions to that. But they've generally done pretty well in this sort of a fixture. And I think even over the last however long sort of decade of post-Alex Ferguson, they've always had that thing where they're able to sort of ride a wave. And when they get in a good run of form, they sort of tend to keep it up. You've seen it under most of the managers before it sort of, collapses a little bit. But, they are in good form and they don't control games. We saw that. I think Luton had something like 20 shots in the game last week, which is just crazy. I mean, I think I saw a tweet. I think they've conceded 20 shots or more like 8 times already this season, which is ridiculous for a team of sort of like United
and I think the stat
like
was,
that.
just to dig it in, that Liverpool have only given up 20 or more shots twice under the entire reign of Jurgen Klopp. You can throw that one in, Andrew. It's fine. Take a dig.
Yeah, no, I think that is right. And I think I saw that was the 2 games this season where they had a first half red card. So it's almost like it doesn't count. But
Wow.
But anyway, yeah. So I think Fulham possibly will score, but I'm confident United will get the job done. Fulham have scored in 5 of the last 6 visits to Old Trafford, I noticed. So basically the same bet as the previous one, really. United win and over 2.5 goals is plus 121, which looks an excellent price to me, because I could see United winning 2 or 3-0 and Fulham possibly scoring. So, I think that looks an excellent price.
I the exact same bet as you. I'm just confirming where the most recent number is. Both teams are you booking both teams to score and Manchester United to win? Is that what you're playing here?
No, I was United to win and over 2.5 goals. I think Fulham probably will score, but that obviously just helps that bet anyway. But I was going win and over 2.5.
Okay, I'm going to go both teams to score and Manchester United to win at plus 199. That is a big number. You said it, Fulham have scored on recent trips to Old Trafford. In fact, in Manchester United's recent games, pushed Fulham to the side here. Both teams to score and United to win has cashed in 6 of their last 9 games in all competitions. So they're winning games, but they're conceding goals, Andrew. Like that, defensively, they look a mess at times. And I think that Fulham do have the attacking players to go on and run at that back four that lack quickness, that lack mobility. I think the goalkeeper, there's still a lot of questions about him, and no left back solution. United may very well go on to win this game, and I'm banking that they do. But you're right. They concede goals. I wouldn't detract or tell anyone to go against the goal total in the over in this game. But I think where you're getting the most value is the potential for United to win and both teams to score at plus 199. So I'm going to lock that in for a full unit play. Anything else here?
No, I think it's going to be a comfortable home win. So, we'll see how that plays out.
Also for United, it's making a significant difference not playing European football. Like they've turned around their form when they got some players back and they're able to kind of plan ahead. Although they're by far from a complete team, they do look like they're playing as a group much better. And the youngsters, the young players have really stepped up in a real big time of need. Our final Premier League match of the weekend in our featured five is Arsenal and Newcastle United. I was surprised by the number a little bit, just how far out Newcastle are to win this game. A home win for Arsenal at minus 250. Newcastle would be nowhere near at their best, and they're missing players. But a Newcastle win at plus 621. That's a huge number heading into this game, especially considering how competitive these two sides have been playing against one another in recent vintage. Arsenal's in third, 55 points, one back in Man City, and have a game in hand on league leaders Liverpool. They're still very much in the race. It was a mixed week for Arsenal. Thrashed Burnley 5-0, then lost 1-0 at Porto on Wednesday in the Champions League, where they failed to put a shot on target. This is the second time that's ever happened to Arsenal in the Champions League. They ended a stretch of 5 straight convincing wins in all competitions with that defeat. However, in the league, they're undefeated in the Premier League since the new year, and they've scored 5 or more goals in back-to-back away matches and have scored 21 goals over that 5-game span. They played to over 2.5 in 5 of their last 6. Back-to-back home wins after back-to-back home losses for Arsenal. They did lose in the FA Cup in the league before this little turn in form at the Emirates. 9-2-1 at home overall. They have the best home expected goals against at just 10.38. Arteta only used one sub midweek, bringing Jorginho onto the game against Porto. Jesus is closing in on a return. Same goes for Tomiyasu and Zinchenko, who both have missed out. Newcastle, they're in 8th place, 37 points, sandwiched between Brighton and West Ham. It's been disappointing. Injuries and absences have played a significant role. Another 2-2 home draw against Bournemouth. Matt Ritchie, 90+2, salvaged a point for Newcastle. No Isak, no Wilson in that game, but Newcastle is still scoring goals. It's defensively where it's been an absolute mess. Their most recent results, 2-2, 3-2, 4-4, 3-1, 3-2, 4-2, 3-1. Lots of goals in Newcastle games and big XGs for both sides. No losses in 5 overall, no clean sheets in 4 overall. They've gone over 2.5 in 8 of 9, both teams to score in 5 of 6. They're still not a very good away side, but they've started to turn things around a little bit. Won back-to-back away Premier League games at Forest and Villa, and they won the 2 away before that in the FA Cup. 3-2-7 overall. It's not flattering, just 11 points away from home in the league, and the 4th worst expected goals away from home as well. 25.96 in 12 games. What's happened to this side compared to last season? Isak closing in on a return. Shares should be good to go after hurting his wrist at the end of the Bournemouth game. Head-to-head, Newcastle beat Arsenal. It was an Anthony Gordon winner earlier in the season at St. James's Park. Their last 11 games have finished between these two sides have finished with blank to nil scoreline. So both teams to score has not been playing in this fixture. Under 2.5 in their last 6 games, and Newcastle's last trip to Arsenal, I don't know if you remember it from last season, it was awful. It was a dire goalless draw. I'm not sure Arsenal can play that way this time around. So what are you looking at here? Because Arsenal love to ship goals, but this fixture hasn't been one that has provided many of them.
No, I'm going all in on Arsenal on this. I think Arsenal on the handicap at plus 101, minus 1.5 goals, because I think they're going to win and probably win quite easily. I mean, you read off the recent Newcastle results there. I mean, conceded 2 or more goals to Bournemouth, Forest and Luton in their last 3. I mean, if they're doing that, they're obviously going to concede a couple to Arsenal, you would think. And obviously, as we said, Arsenal, not a good result at Porto, probably a little bit unexpected for me, not for you. But before that, Arsenal's last 5 league games, I mean, they won them by 21 goals to 2 on aggregate. And one of the goals they conceded was an own goal to Liverpool. So, you know, obviously some of those were against teams like Burnley, and Newcastle will be a bit tougher than that. But Newcastle have lost home and away to Liverpool and Man City. And all right, they did beat Arsenal in the reverse fixture, as you say. But with Arsenal's form in the league and Newcastle shipping goals, I think Arsenal on the handicap is my choice for this one.
Okay. We're going head to head here. A goal and a half spread against Newcastle. Look, Newcastle have had their problems. I just don't think there's a goal and a half difference in this game. You give me a lot on the handicap to bet Newcastle. I think it's at minus 113. I'm going to lock in a full unit play and hope that Newcastle show up for this one. Again, the goals haven't been a problem. I think they have players that can be a pest playing against Arsenal's backline. It's actually moved out. It's at minus 111 right now. Arsenal had to travel to Portugal to play midweek, played on a Wednesday, turn things around to a Saturday. Newcastle feet up, relaxing, preparing for this one. Despite their struggles, I refuse to believe that Newcastle are this bad and there's this much of a gap between this team. So I'm not betting Newcastle because I think they're going to win this game. I'm betting it based on the numbers that are being offered out here. I just think that a goal and a half is too much, but you're comfortable with that, Andrew.
Yeah, I think so. For the reasons I said, Arsenal scoring a lot of goals and Newcastle shipping a lot of goals. But I guess when you put it like that, I guess it is quite a wide handicap for Newcastle. But no, I'm comfortable with that. I mean, just one other thing I spotted, whether people do the cards markets, but you can get over 4.5 bookings at plus 118. Newcastle picked up 5 yellow cards at both Liverpool and Manchester City, so they might cover that entirely on their own. So anyone who likes a card bet, I think that's one that's worth checking out.
I'm not sure how many there were in the goalless draw last season, but I mean, Newcastle were playing to just come out of there with something. So a good shout there as well. Well, I shouldn't say there as well, because I actually hope that you go on and lose that bet. And I go on and win it. So it's a gamble betting on Newcastle, but I'm betting they can score, and let's see how it plays out. Let's move things forward because the 5th game of our Feature 5 is Sunday's Carabao Cup Final, a rematch of the 2022 Carabao Cup Final between Liverpool and Chelsea. It was a memorable one in 2022, not for what happened over the course of 90 minutes or even extra time. It was the penalties. Andrew, were you celebrating that day? 11-10 on penalties, went to the goalkeepers. Kelleher made his, Kepa missed his, and Liverpool went on and won the Carabao Cup. What are your memories of that day?
Well, they're a little bit hazy, as you can imagine, but yeah, it was interesting. I looked up the stats from the game because obviously that was a goalless draw, and the FA Cup Final, same teams that year, was a goalless draw. The shots in the Carabao was 20 shots to 11, and in the FA Cup it was 17 to 10. So probably shouldn't have been goalless games, but they were. This one is such a difficult one to call because of the injuries, not to sort of harp on what we were saying about, but, you know, Liverpool are available at plus 112 to win, I think. And, you know, if they were fully fit, or plus 113 it is now, actually. If they were fully fit, I think you'd be all over that. But not knowing who's going to play, it's very difficult to sort of back them, really. I mean, you know, Salah and Núñez haven't been ruled out yet. They're sort of day by day, as Klopp said. Now, he might be saying that just to sort of not give away too much too soon and stuff like that. But obviously, if they come back, then all of a sudden Liverpool at plus 113 against a team they beat 4-1 about 3 weeks ago looks pretty good to me. But
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Liverpool, 9-time winners of this competition. They're still playing on 4 fronts. This can be, you know, one of the 4 jewels on kind of the lesser quad potentially that's coming Liverpool's way this year. It's not the Champions League, but it's the Europa League. Let's document those injuries. A big concern: Alisson Becker, Trent, Szoboszlai, Jota, Jones. I'm probably missing a few others as well. So, I mean, the young players have stepped up and stepped in. Jota's the name I circle because he was so good when Salah was away and he was out. Liverpool coming into this game, coming off back-to-back 4-1 wins, 3 wins in a row, no clean sheets in 7, over 2.5 in their last 6, and both teams to score in 7 of 7. Chelsea, just to mention, 5-time winners. Last time they won was 2015 of the Carabao Cup. A statement 1-1 draw against Man City. They showed me something different. I actually think the center-back partnership worked in that game. Diassi and Colwell were excellent. Gusto and Chilwell, the back 4, they haven't been able to quite get it right. Maybe they're onto something. It's forced Poch's hand, and maybe he has something there. They gave up 31 shots and conceded late to Rodri in that game, but a lot of the shots came from the periphery. I watched a bit of that game. I just thought there was more bite to Chelsea's game. That's the best way I can put it. No losses in 3, no clean sheet in 5 overall. They played over 2.5 and 4 or 5 in both teams to score in their last 5. Head to head, you mentioned it, 4-1 demolition job. Wasn't even close. 4-1 a couple weeks ago. Liverpool beat Chelsea at Anfield, but this game's not being played at Anfield. And it broke a stretch of 7 straight draws in times that they played, including a stretch of 4 goalless draws, and we documented 2 of the 4. No losses for Liverpool in 8, and under 2.5 and 5 of 6. So are you going to make an official play for this one? Or is there a number that you're looking at here?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take both teams to score on over 2.5 goals at plus 102. Going against, obviously, the goalless cup finals, as we said, from a couple of years ago. I think you mentioned it there. Neither side has had too many clean sheets lately. Chelsea will obviously had the week to prepare, whereas Liverpool were playing last night. But I think, to be honest, it probably did Liverpool good to play their slightly reserve 11 that they've got at the moment. Probably did them good to play a game and have a good second half and score a few goals and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm expecting goals. And as I say, both teams to score over 2.5 is plus 102.
Contrasting views yet again. I will be making a play, but not quite now, because I think the market is going to continue to go in your direction with the expectation of goals. I'm going to play under the number. Maybe a half unit play. I'll make a half unit play specifically for this podcast under 2.75 at minus 107. These cup ties are different. No Anfield factor. That's a difference for Liverpool. It's not an away game, but they're not playing at home. Anfield, they just looked such a complete unit. They played midweek. Liverpool are down numbers. I just think the game is going to be a whole lot closer. Chelsea have had over a week off to prepare. And typically these Carabao Cup finals, there hasn't been a whole lot of goals. If you look at the last 5 Carabao Cup finals played, 0-0, 2-1, 1-0, another goalless draw, and United beat Newcastle 2-0 last season. These games are a little bit more cagey, a little bit more tight. You're playing for a trophy, but I hope that number continues to go up. I'm not sure if it'll get to 3, but you might be able to get a little bit more juice on the 2.75. And for me, it's worth the risk. Like if it's a 2-1 game, if it's a 3-0, you get a little bit of insurance of just a half loss. So that's what I'm kind of banking on here. I hope for the neutral and people watching that there are goals in this fixture, but just based on the context, Andrew, that's kind of why I'm leaning in the other direction.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, as I say, I think there's probably goals because of the sort of, slightly unusual nature of Liverpool's team probably, and Chelsea haven't been keeping too many clean sheets and stuff like that. One of the slightly unusual selection again, under 9.5 corners at plus 109, because games at Wembley always low on corners.
Really?
There were just 5 in the 2022 FA Cup final, and most England games at Wembley are in single figures for corners.
Why is that? Why is that? Is that nature of cup competition? Is it the field? Is it the pitch? What do you make of
I
that?
honestly don't know what it is. I mean, I think the problem with looking at England games, obviously, is that they're often quite one-sided when they play the qualifiers against, much smaller nations and stuff like that. But it even holds when they've played Germany and some of the bigger teams and stuff like that. So, yeah, generally, for whatever reason, games at Wembley, very low on corners almost always. So, I wouldn't be making a huge play on it, but under 9.5 at plus 109 seems pretty good, actually.
Food for thought. Let's put it that way. Andrew will be enjoying the Carabao Cup final pending the result this Sunday. Let's go rapid fire for the rest. Glasner in at Crystal Palace, replacing Roy Hodgson, just the second Austrian to become a manager in the Premier League. Who's the other Austrian manager? Andrew Beasley?
Not Andrew Beasley, but possibly Ralph Hasenhüttl.
It is Ralph Hasen. I'm a big Hasenhüttl guy. I'd like to see him back in the Premier League. Crystal Palace takes on Burnley at home. Does the Glasner era at Palace get off to a flying start?
Well, it's a decent fixture, isn't it, to make a start with? Really, Burnley at home, you'd have to think so. I'm actually looking at both teams to score at minus 104 when I looked earlier today. Just because it's been happening a lot in Palace games recently. I think they are second for both teams to score across the last 8 games. And whilst we obviously don't know how Oliver Glasner's going to do here, 2/3 of his Bundesliga games with Eintracht Frankfurt saw both teams to score. And obviously so did Burnley's 4 games prior to losing 5-0 to Arsenal last week were both teams to score. And obviously Palace are not as good defensively as Arsenal. That's very obvious. So, that's what I'm looking at here. I think Palace probably win, but I'll take the both teams to score.
New manager bounce. We'll see. But look, we've documented the goal totals across the Premier League. When I see 2.25, it's almost like an automatic over bet. It's an overplay. Over 2.25 at minus 107 for the context that it just keeps on happening. Just teams going over. And these two sides have been playing to the over as well. Palace have been over 2.5 in 4 of their last 5 games. To your point, both teams to score has played in 4 of their last 5. Burnley have played over 2.5 in 4 or 5, and both teams to score in 4 or 5. So they've been playing over that number anyways, and the number's been knocked down to 2.25. Get it while it's hot. This might be my favorite play of the weekend. New manager, little bit of unknown. Burnley needs to go for it. They need a win. They've both been playing to over, both been playing to both teams to score. This is a game. Bet the over. I'm actually going to make this a 2-unit play. I'm going to make this is my favorite bet of the week. Am I being a little bit too brash here? Reel me in if you have to.
Well, I mean, they're playing a team that concedes a lot of goals, aren't they? So,
Yes.
like you say, new manager bounce. Hopefully the crowd will be up for it. I think most people probably wanted Roy Hodgson to go by the end. So, bit of a lift at Selhurst Park and stuff like that. Yeah. Not the worst shout at all, obviously.
Burnley have to win. They have to play. And honestly, they've been playing some more progressive football, but just getting smashed in the process. They play the last 2 games, I believe, were against Liverpool and Arsenal. I mean, now they play a team that's nowhere near as good as them. Let's hope for goals in this game, for at least my account on Pinnacle's sake. Let's put it that way. Brighton and Everton. Do you have a play here?
I don't actually. This is the one game this weekend where I couldn't really land on anything. I think, I would expect Brighton to win. Everton have winless in 8. But Brighton are quite erratic. Win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game. They don't seem to sort of have the same result 2 games in a row. And Everton have a surprisingly good record against Brighton as well, which you wouldn't automatically assume. Obviously, Brighton have been very good the last few years and Everton generally haven't. But it's probably one to bet the overs again, I guess. But I couldn't really land on anything that really grabbed me. So no play for this one.
Yeah, I was staring at the overs, but I'm just going to make my standard Brighton play, which I seemingly do every week, and it's been profitable to bet them this season. Both teams to score and over 2.5 at plus 105. A full unit play here. Brighton can score goals. They like to concede it. Everton's a little bit funny because they do create a lot of chances. Their XG numbers, Andrew, you probably have them in front of you. That they're decent. It's just putting the ball into the back of the net. They rely so heavily on scoring on set pieces, but they do create chances. Good news is Decore's back in the team, and Onana's been coming off the bench. They got to play from the get-go because they're such a better team when Onana's playing. But I think there could be goals in this game, so both teams to score in the over at plus 105. You like that play?
Yeah. No, that's a good shout. I'll leave it because I think it could. Sean Dyche could try and throttle the life out of this game, but whether that's possible with Brighton, as you say, they do score a lot, concede a lot, and stuff like that. But no, it's definitely not massively disagreeing with your choice there.
I think Everton can. I'm not going to touch it, but I think Everton can win this game. Just with the points deduction, that not being settled, need to press a little bit more. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm looking forward to I like watching both these teams play, to be honest with you, this year. So I'll be checking out that game this weekend. Let's move to Sunday. It's kind of like the appetizer, and not the most preferable appetizer. It's the one where we go over to a relative's house and you're just being courteous by having a bite. It's Wolves and Sheffield United on Sunday. Do you have a play in this game?
Yeah, I think it's Wolves to win and over 2.5 goals. It's plus 117. I mean, we spoke about it earlier, how bad Sheffield United's defence is, and Wolves always look much livelier when they've got Pedro Neto in the side. A couple of good away wins recently at Tottenham and Chelsea. They've won 10 games this season, Wolves, and 8 of them have also seen over 2.5 goals. So with that sort of record and Sheffield United's defence, as we say, I think, Wolves and over 2.5 looks good to me.
This is the one game I'm leaving alone this week. I was leaning to over the total, but Cunha is out for Wolves. I think he's a significant loss. And the time where Wolves struggle, if they're playing a team that parks the bus a little bit, they have a difficult time breaking teams down that set up stubborn defensively. Sheffield United actually did beat them in the reverse fixture. It was a Norwood penalty 90 plus 10. I still think that Wolves should win this game. I just have a little bit of a seed of doubt. So, and the game's not good enough for me. I like Wolves. I'm just going to stay away from this one entirely and make the Carabao Cup my main course, my only course for Sunday football. And let's wrap things up with some Monday night football. It's struggling West Ham against struggling Brentford. I think both sides are better than how they've been performing as of late, but what do you make of this game? This one's a difficult play for me as well, but I will plug my nose and make one inevitably. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, same. I think now that Roy Hodgson's gone from Palace, I think West Ham are now the sort of saddest looking club in the Premier League, aren't they? I don't think there's many people backing David Moyes, which I get. I think, the style of football isn't great and things like that, but clearly in relative terms, this is probably a golden era for West Ham with a trophy win and some top half finishes and stuff like that. I often back Brentford and often end up regretting my choice, but I think I'm going to do it again. Brentford draw no bet plus 104. They've won the previous Premier League meetings. They should be the favourites according to the underlying numbers. And as I say, that's often the case with Brentford, and they do let you down from time to time. But with West Ham not looking very inspiring, I think, a little play on possibly Brentford draw no bet.
Yeah, I like Brentford. I like the way they play. They finally got some players back from African Cup of Nations, Ivan Toney back as well. Since the turn of the new year, they've had a very difficult schedule. I talk about their results, just 2 wins, 4 losses in their last 6, but they played City twice over that span. They played Spurs. It's been a tough fixture list for them, so I think this will be a game that they like. I'll give you a little bit more juice on that. It's now up to plus 107 on Pinnacle, Andrew. So, and that's not going to be my play. Brentford won 3-2 last time out. Just to also back your Brentford play here. They've won the last 5 against West Ham in the Premier League. It's just everything is begging me to make a Brentford play. I just think there'll be a response from West Ham. They're better than this. They're not this bad. And a massive liability. Calvin Phillips is suspended for this game. So maybe they can go back to the way they were before they brought in the Man City cast-off. I'm going to go over the total of 2.75 at plus 102, a half unit play.
Okay.
West Ham haven't scored in their last 3 games. Brentford is a team, despite City only putting 1 past them, that you love to play against. Liverpool put 4 past them. Like, they concede a lot of goals. Like, a lot of goals. That's the only way I can look at this game. And just a half unit play over the number, a plus total here. I think that West Ham, they got Mikel Antonio back into the team. Give them an extra game. The way that Brentford play, they can certainly score against this West Ham back line. So that's my play. But, if you really have the guts of a Brentford win and over the total, I can see that happening, putting a little bit more pressure on David Moyes. I think it'll be watchable for all the right and wrong reasons. So let's hope it's entertaining for the neutral. So my best bet, that's the board this weekend. No Spurs game. The schedule, the fixture list juggled around a little bit because of the Carabao Cup Final. Do you have a favorite bet this week, Andrew, that you'd like to announce to the world?
Yeah, I think it's Wolves and over 2.5 at plus 114. Just with the way Sheffield United are playing, I think that looks a good bet.
All right. Mine is over the total of 2.25 in Palace and Burnley. It's funny. Oftentimes these bets don't come in our feature 5. There's some just random games that that number jumps off the page and looks good to me. Andrew, thanks for stepping up and stepping in this week. Where can everyone find your fine work that you continue to provide to the public on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I'm at Base Tune to Red on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And obviously anything I'm writing, I'm sort of sharing links and stuff on there. So that's the best place to find me.
Brilliant. I hope to have you back on this podcast again soon. Top work this week, pal. Good to see you.
Likewise, I'm always ready to stand in whenever Jake's off sunning himself with all his winnings from last weekend.
Yes. This is what happens when you listen to EPL Insights. You can afford lavish vacations to destinations abroad like the Osgathorpe family this week. On behalf of Andrew and everyone at Pinnacle, I am Gareth Wheeler, and this has been EPL Insights for Game Week 26 in the Premier League.